Hey everybody, welcome back to Mel's Board Game Room. So I am doing my top 9 games that I played during the month of February. And I'm actually right on the ball because this is March 1st. So February just finished. I woke up early. Lee was still sleeping, so while in bed, I did my top 9 list this morning. And we're going to go through that today. So let's look at the stats first. So in February, it wasn't a great month. I played 26 games. 26 times of 19 different games. I mean, it's not bad, but January was so good. I was like, oh, I'm on a roll. But apparently not. And that was 2% of my base collection. But I do have Carla coming over this coming week to have like a couple days of full gaming. So my March should be good. We'll see how that goes. But let's get started with the top 9. So in number 9 position, I have Tiny Epic Western. So my friend Kayla and Travis, I don't know if you remember the top 100 I did with Travis last year. So they came over and we did our a Tiny Epic game day. So we just played all Tiny Epic games all day. Tiny Epic Western was one of the ones that I had played, that we played. And actually, neither of them had played this one before. And this one is really neat because it has a very Western, like the way that the board sets up kind of creates a wagon wheel, right? And it's poker based. So it's worker placement. You're going to pick up the different locations you want to go to. And you can activate kind of like an immediate effect where you get a bonus right away. Or you can place yourself so that you get the bonus if you win that location. And to win the location is through like a 3-hand poker that you would play with anybody else that's at that location. And if nobody else is at that location, you play the sheriff. The sheriff is handed a card randomly as well. And that would kind of determine whether or who gets the bonus anyways. But then if you go in a location where somebody always is, then you have to duel. And they have these little bullet dice. And you can see 2 on the picture there. So you just kind of roll the bullet dice and it's however it lands. And this is the first game I have ever come across bullet dice. It's super cool. And it's just a neat game. So with the resources you purchase at the end of the round, you can buy buildings that gets tucked and added to your location because each player has a location in this little village. It's a neat game. I really quite enjoy this one. This is one that I hear a lot is the least favorite for some people with a Tiny Epic game, but for me, it's up there. So we're hoping to do a couple more Tiny Epic game days because we've only played 5. I have a lot more. And then after we do that, kind of do our top 9 Tiny Epic game. Plus, I still have Cthulhu and Game of Thrones that is coming. I've got the delivery or like the shipping notice. I'm just waiting for them to arrive. So there's those 2 that I would want to add. Plus Tiny Epic Adventures, Dungeon Adventures just got on Kickstarter. So that one won't be a part of the top 9 just because it's not going to be here till next year and we're not going to wait that long. But then number 8 position is Tiny Epic Galaxies because it's another one that we ended up playing. This is, I would say out of the Tiny Epic games, this is the easiest one to get to the table. It is straightforward. It is so satisfying. Lots of dice rolling. So you roll the dice, and depending on what you roll, you activate the different action that's been rolled with a dice. And you can send your ships to orbit a planet so that you can eventually gain that planet. And it gets added to your board. It's going to be worth points, but it also gives you a new ability that you can activate. Or you can land on the planet and just activate that ability right away. But then you're not gaining the planet then. So it's not going to give you any extra points, but it might give you benefits to try to get more planets. So this one is neat. The inside of the box becomes a dice tray, and then it's all, the artwork is all great. And it was a lot of fun. It's probably one that was easiest, as I said, to get to the table. It was one that was like, okay, what are we playing? Okay, Galaxies, guaranteed we're playing today. So it was unanimous. We had a great time with it. So Tiny Epic Galaxies was my number 8. Then in number 7 position is another Tiny Epic game, one that I had not had the chance to get to the table yet. So that was Tiny Epic Crimes. And I loved it. You know how I am with solving murders and then like deduction games like that. So whodunit games. And this is what this game is. So you have a pile of suspect and you shuffle those cards and you put one of them in the murder sleeve. So that's the murderer. And during the game, we need to solve who the murderer is. So we have 48 hours in the time to go back and forth to try to get the clues to be able to guess who the murderer is. Now, you can play this game cooperatively or everybody against everybody. We didn't play cooperatively. We were each on our own. And then you get these different things you're trying to accomplish on the board. So collecting those pink tokens, collecting the blue tokens. There's green clue tokens on the board. So if you get there, you can try to solve the clues. But what was cool too is the board is like the time board is divided between daytime and nighttime because you got 48 hours. And when you're in the daytime, you have to do a daytime action. Not everybody's available to do all action. Then in the nighttime, you do nighttime actions. And then you're collecting these clues. And once one of the set of clues is kind of fully collected, then you get the last person to collect the clue gets that envelope. Everybody else who contributed gets a suspect card. So then with that, you'd be like, okay, well, this one's eliminated. Okay, and then what else do we find out? Oh, okay, so they're part of the red rhino group. So then you can eliminate all the bluebird group. Or, you know, it's like, oh, they use the knife. So then you can eliminate all the people that use guns and so on. So you're going around trying to collect and going around the city trying to collect these clues so that you can get access to the envelope so that you can solve the crime. But then there's also an event that comes up. And if you can solve an event and resolve an event, then you can peek at somebody else's clues that they've collected, the clue envelopes, and then you can look at those clues as well. And when you look at the clues, you take the suspect card out of the murder envelope and you slide it into the clue, and it just kind of gives you one part of that thing and it shows you something. And it's one of those where you have like the red plastic that you put over so that the blue stuff can poke through and you can see it. So it was really cool. But then each suspect is just an individual and you can get those out. But if you ever get too many events, because you can only have room for 3 and you haven't resolved the events and another one comes out, some of the suspects starts getting discarded. So that's not good because you're trying to make sure you get enough clues or eliminate enough suspects so you can figure out who the murderer is. And when you get to the last couple hours, then everybody's got to make a guess. And now I was 50-50. I still had 2 suspects. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take a guess on this one. And I ended up being right. But then you got the, I think is whoever was further on the badge track was the tiebreaker. So I didn't win, but at least I got the right suspect. But it was such an interesting game. I really enjoyed it. I love those trying to solve clue type. Let's figure out who the murderer was. So I love those type of games. So that now was a hit for me for that. And that was my number 7, Tiny Epic Crimes. Then in number 6 position, this is a game that I have owned a long time. I bought them when my kids were littler because they were huge fans of Gold Rush Alaska. And I thought this game would be a hit for them, and it really was. And this game is Pay Dirt. So Pay Dirt is your modern day gold miner. And you have your board, and you're on your board, you have your excavator, then you have your loader, then you have your wash plants. And then once your dirt has made its way through all those 3 machines, you get to flip it over and see how much gold was in your dirt. And then there's different type of dirt. You have barren land, which might not have hardly anything at all. But then you have promising dirt. Then you have rich dirt that has the most potential for gold. But then you would watch in the episode every time they would get a new claim, and you can bid on claims to get more access to more dirt. They would test the dirt to see, okay, is this promising dirt? So you can bid on claim, you can bid on getting more workers, or you can bid on getting better machinery, because it takes 3 steps for the dirt to make it through each machinery. So, and 1 worker will move it 1 step. So you'd have to have 3 workers to move the dirt all the way through. But if you get a better machinery, it could be that one just needs 1 worker and it goes through really quick. So you can move more dirt faster so you can get more gold, because the goal is to be the player with the most gold nuggets. Now, if you need money, you can sell your gold nuggets for cash, but then you're not going to have, you're selling your victory points basically. And this is a worker placement game. We love it. We love it. And then when my friend Aaliyah was over with her family around Christmas time, I showed this to her son Case because I figured he would like it too. And apparently he had been asking her about this game. So she's like, I can't find it anywhere. This was a Kickstarter. I don't think it ever made it to retail. So it's not a readily available game. So she's like, he's been asking for weeks. Can we arrange a play date to play Pay Dirt? And I was like, no problem. So we went over for supper. I brought Pay Dirt. We played it. Case loved it. So that was my number 6, Pay Dirt. Then in number 5 position is Rocketmen. I was so impressed with this one. I went to Card Treat, and so this was Carla's board gaming weekend. She does a couple times a year. She did this at a restaurant, and this was the last one. They sold the business, so this was the last one at the restaurant. And I ended up playing this one when my friend Carl was setting it up. I was like, ooh, do you mind if I join? And it's a Martin Wallace game, and I'm a big fan of some of the Martin Wallace game. I haven't played them all yet, but so far, everyone I've played, I quite enjoy. And this one was so interesting. So it's a push your luck game, and then we're Rocketman, right? So we got to go on Rocket, and we got to complete these different missions. And some mission is to make it to Earth. Some missions are make it further to the moon, or some missions is going to make it even further and go straight to Mars. But then you need to reach further, and depending on how far, you need more provision. So you got to plan your mission first. And on your board, you'll have your card because it's kind of a deck building as well. So be like, okay, well, I'm going to do this mission. So you plan the mission and you pay to put that mission down. Then you got to pay to put any card that's going to prep it. So some missions require certain amount of rocket symbol to be added to the prep area in order to be able to take off and complete the mission. So you're going to be adding some of those. Once you have enough rocket, you can go on the mission, but you can add more cards to it too. So you can add cards that matches the symbol of the destination where you're going to. So if you're going to Earth, the moon, or Mars, you can add some of those cards, and then it builds up. Like what will happen is for every of those symbol you have, you get to move ahead when you try to complete your mission, because you got to reach it. So let's say I have 4 of those symbols and I get to move my token 4 spaces closer to my target. Then depending if I'm going to Earth, the moon, or Mars, how many cards you flip over, and you just give these cards a shuffle, and then you flip them over, and maybe I move over 1 space, and now I'm like, okay, do we abort or do we keep going? This is a luck aspect here, the push your luck aspect, because you can decide to keep going. No, okay, let's keep going. Then you flip and it's a 0. So you've only moved 1 space. Now you only have 1 more card and you got 3 spaces to go. Now there are 3 and 4s, but not a lot. There's way more 1 and 2s and a couple 0s. So like, okay, so now with 2 cards in, you can abort. And if you abort, you just go back, and you have to discard one of your prep cards because you've used 2, so you discard 1, or you can push. But if you push and fail, then you got to discard all of your prep cards, and to complete that mission or a different mission, you got to start all over again, paying for all of these cards to get added again to the prep area. So like, oh, you know, I'm gonna board. I'm not gonna do it yet. So it was so interesting. But then, you know, you got different missions will allow you to kind of put a satellite on Earth, around orbiting Earth, orbiting the moon, or orbiting Mars. And then like there's different things you're trying to accomplish. And when you complete a mission, it kind of gives you an ongoing benefit that you can have access to. Could be money, could be a symbol that you now always have access to. It was really neat. Now, there's also the cards that you can purchase to build up your cards so that you can better prep your missions. Some of the cards are just like victory points, which is great. You want victory points. That's a great way and that was the kind of the strategy. I got a lot of victory points, but then those cards can clutter your hand. Now we're playing this wrong a little bit. I don't think we're putting it in our deck right away, so it might have affected my score, but it was so neat. I want this game. I don't own it yet. I've only played it that one time, but I was so impressed with it. So I really want to get this and play it again. So that was my number 5, Rocketman. Number 4 position. Actually, it was funny because last month, this was number 4 position as well. When I was doing my presentation here, I didn't have to replace these pictures at all. And that is Finspan. So we actually played it at Carla's retreat. And we played, played it a couple of times now, but it just goes so cool. Like, this is I find it's the simpler version of all the Wingspan, Wormspan, Finspan. This is the simplest of the bunch. But it's very interesting decisions you got to make, right? Because be like, okay, so I get an egg. Okay, where do you want to put your egg? And you want to be kind of strategic, because you can hatch those egg into young fish. And then if you ever get 3 young fish together, you can convert those into school of fish. And schools of fish are worth a lot more points. There's 6 points at the end of the game over a young fish. That's 1 point. So, and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to put the eggs here because there's a young fish next to it. Now, if I hatch it, I will have 2 fish, and then I can move this one here, and then I would have a school. So, like, there's very interesting decision as to where you're going to place the fish, where you're going to place your eggs, where you're going to place your fish, and like the young fish, because you got the token fish, but then you got the fish cards as well. And the fish cards are very interesting. So then you can replace some fish cards. So be like, okay, well, I'm going to put my bigger fish here over here, but it has to be bigger because it's consuming the other fish. And you can't go the other way, right? A little goldfish can't take over a shark. But you're playing this. So the whole game is very interesting. And then on your turn, you either go diving and activating the different benefit of each row, and depending on how many fish is in there, you can activate as well, or you can place a new fish, but then you got to spend the cost. And it could be that you got to discard cards, you got to discard fish, or you got to discard fish eggs, or you got to replace a fish, and so on, right? It's neat. I quite enjoy this one. Great game. And that's my number 4, Finspan. Then in number 3 position is a game that got sent to me by Rio Grande Game, and I was really excited to play this. This is one that I had my eyes on, and I had seen it around. I was like, I want to get this game. It looks so cool. And I was not disappointed, and that is Woodcraft. And you're crafting wood, but the woods are dice. And so you have 3 types of wood in different qualities, and it's green wood is like the lowest quality wood. Then you have the yellow wood, then you have the brown wood. So the brown wood, being higher quality, is more expensive as well. So, and you can do different things. You can grow the wood. So you plant it so you can grow your wood, or you can go buy your wood at the market. You can saw the wood in half. So if you have a 6 pip die, you could saw that in half and do a 4 and a 2, or 5 and a 1, or 3 and a 3. And you have these cards that have different orders of items you got to craft together, but they will have a requirement. So maybe it's like a 2 brown wood, like a 2 pip brown wood dice and a glue or whatever. But then you can't be over. You have to have that exact numbered pip dice to complete your order. So it gets really interesting, and that's why you got to saw your wood, or you can glue them together and take a 3 and a 2 and make it into a 4. No, that would be a 5. But it was just so very interesting. The whole aspect, that whole gameplay is interesting. And if the game was just about that, it would be great. But it's even better because of the action selection. And you have this rondelle of these actions that you can activate. And when you activate, you move that action to the beginning of to the back of the next rondelle segment and move forward. Now, if it's an action you haven't done in a while, it gets benefits. Like I say, well, I'm going to do this action. I wasn't really wanting it, but then it gives me the benefit of taking a wooden 2 pip brown dice and or whatever, like in a glue or whatever, because it changes as you move ahead. So that whole action selection is my favorite part of this game. And the whole game is great. So Woodcraft is my number 3. Great game. In number 2 position is the game we had not played in a while. Lee really likes it. And then we said, let's play this again. It's Terraforming Mars. Oh my God, Terraforming Mars is so talked about because it is so neat and interesting. And it's just such a blast to play. And you really engine building here, because you get cars that can work with each other. And I had a great one. So every time I would get an event that was a scientific event, I got to collect extra money for it being a scientific event, but I got to collect extra money because it was just a based event. And then I was, so I was gaining lots that way. So I had a pretty good, not enough to win, but I had a pretty good engine going. So it was very satisfying. And you're terraforming Mars. So you're trying to bring these different things into making Mars habitable and increase the temperature so it's bearable and get some oxygen on the planet. And then you're planting trees and you're putting oceans and you're planting cities. And in the end, you kind of everything is going to score. And it's one that we've played many times, but as I said, we hadn't played it in a few years. And then Lee said, well, let's play this one again. And it was so good. Still so good. My number 2 for the month, Terraforming Mars. Then in number 1 position is a game that I played at Car Treat, and that is Res Arcana. So you can register to play some event. I have already played this game, and I was like, I want to play it again. So we ended up playing Res Arcana at the event. I want to say, first of all, Tom Lehman. I am playing more and more games like, oh, this game is great. Who's it by? And it's Tom Lehman. Oh, wow. And it's like, oh, this is so good. Who's it by? Tom Lehman. So I'm a big fan of his right now. Like, I've played a bunch of games recently that were all by him, and I am loving it. So if it has Tom Lehman's main name on it, I think I'm in. But Res Arcana is so neat. So one thing that's really interesting is at the beginning of the game, you get handed a bunch of cards, and then you will go through and look at every card, and you'll shuffle them, and then you draw, I think it's three or four. And the decker card, those are all the cards you will get this game. You will not get any more cards, and you're just kind of building on how to best work and manage your resources with this one. And then because you start with one of each resources, and you have like the fire, the water, the yellow one, that's the gold, and then you have like a potion bottle one, and you have the black one that's death, and then you can spend all of them to kind of bring everything in or trade them in. And some cards will like, hey, draw one of these, and then you can actually attack each other, because we'll get like a dragon is like, okay, we'll attack all the other players, and they lose a life. And if they can't spend a life, then they lose. So it's like, oh no, it's like, okay, well, I have a life I can spend. But then I had like dog that'd be like, oh, my dog is protecting me from that. So, but then it's tapped. So if there's another attack that I would have to spend the resource to avoid the attack. And I have played this game many times where those dragons didn't really show that much, or not early on. This game was not one of them. There were a lot of attacks, but it was really interesting. It was really interesting because it really changed the game. And then when you end your turn, you'll swap your one-time kind of action with another tile. Be like, okay, well, so this one allowed me to have like protection in case of dragon attack. This time I'm putting this one back, and I'll take this one that allows me to draw a death token, because I'm not generating death token. And to bring this card that I have out, I need a death token. And then you're going to be building these resources so that you can do some of the bigger cards that are worth more points, or so that you can get, like with the gold, you can get some of these other cards that kind of gives you points as well. And I was nowhere near winning. Like I think I was dead last in this game, in this particular game, but I had a great time. It was so much fun. Res Arcana is such a good game. I own this one, and has a couple of expansions that was in it. So mine also has pearls as an extra element, I guess. These little pearls, but it's such a good game. If you have the chance to play it. It's so good. So this is a recap of the 9 games that made it into the top 9 games for what I've played in February. And here is a quick outlook of the stats. So 26 plays of 19 games. If you notice, there was a lot of trick-taking game, because we recorded for the podcast our top 9 trick-taking games. So, and we wanted to make sure that it were different from the first time we did top 9 trick-taking games. So we picked different trick-taking games. And I was like, well, I better get some more trick-taking games. I've what this, but so there was a lot of trick-taking plays this round. And then this is all the games that were played. This is so sad, because normally I have multiple 5x5s, and this one I didn't fill a full 5x5s. It just feels like I didn't play as much as I normally do. But it was lots of fun, though. Lots of great games did get played. So be sure to follow me. My Facebook page is Mel's Board Game Room. You can also follow me on Instagram at Mel's_boardgame_room. I also have my podcast that I do with my friend Carla called The Board Game Specialist, and my YouTube channels, Mel's Board Game Room. So thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Bye.